Sfidat here and welcome to Inside Albania with me, Alice Taylor. This week my guest is Majlinda Bregu, politician, former minister and the former Secretary General of the Regional Cooperation Council. We're going to be discussing politics, the upcoming elections, SPAC, and of course, as it's Women's History Month, the rights of women in Albania. Haide Memoa. Majlinda Bregu, thank you for joining me and welcome to Inside Albania.
Well, thank you for inviting.
Now, I want to just start with a few preliminary questions before we get into the more women-focused topics. You left the RCC at the end of 2024. Your mandate came to an end, I believe, in December 2024. What's next for you? What are you doing now? What's your plan?
Well, I'm catching my breath for this month, so that's the most important thing that I'm doing. And I realized that from at least 2005, I didn't have just, let's say, a loose period like this of 2 months where I had to dedicate all efforts on myself and on my family. And then there are some things that are coming on the way.
Are you able to hint? Are you thinking of returning to politics?
Well, let's keep it for now. And let's cut it short for now, so we'll see. But I still have some projects and ideas as well.
Okay, so we have to watch this space to see what you're going to do next.
Well, which is something I think it's healthy time after time.
Yes, okay. Now, I read a post of yours the other day, which I thought was excellent, and it was to do with saying it's time that we have women on Albanian banknotes. And you were talking about Mazine Kokolari, who I made a documentary about her recently. I retraced her steps through all of Albania. My daughter's a huge fan of her as well. And I'm wondering, what reaction did you have to this? Did you get sort of lots of angry men going, why do we need this, etc.? Because I remember this debate in the UK and how mainly men reacted to the suggestion.
Although you had Queen and you still have Queen as well. But, well, no, actually, I have to say that the reaction has not been bad at all. And especially, okay, the majority is women, and usually the women are the ones who I tend to see that the ones who are your friends or your network, they are always like thrilled with the idea. So why not? But I didn't really face as far as I remember, nothing that was really wrong on the regard. And I still believe, but it's not that I'm going to carry the burden of trying to decide if it's going to be Musine Kokalari, somebody else, or what's happening with the new banknotes in Albania. All I can say is that this might look like a small idea at a glance, but for me, it really carries a profound importance because the currency, it's not only the means of transaction and to transaction. It's about, it holds a national identity. It holds let's say, the history of a country. And it even has some financial value. So whenever we decide who's going to be printed out or stamped into the banknotes, we are deciding or we are just trying to understand to whose we're going to give more value as a society member. So if it's going to be a woman, if it's going to be another man, who knows? But I think it really has an importance that goes beyond the recognition this time, because it speaks of something that is power, and money is power. And we should empower women, especially young women as well, not only to earn and spend money, but also to save, to invest, and why not to lead in the financial world. So all this has a deeper value than only having those banknotes of any, let's say, illustrious woman printed on those. So I hope that commission, I'm told that there is a commission that decides on who is going to be and which banknote or currency. I hope that in there, somebody will really think that when you give a woman face value to a banknote, you are just trying to give an example and build up a model to teach women and even to fight the financial literacy for women. So it's more than only looking at one of the figures or your historic figures in one of your banknotes.
Musine is a great choice, but I was wondering which other women as well could potentially be on notes, and I thought maybe Luisa Gega, potentially, but then Tringa Ismailai, the Chiriazi sisters. Dea, I'm biased because I have a daughter called Dea. Maria Tutsi. I mean, I came up with a few. Dora D'Istria, she was Kosovar, but she's still Albanian. I mean, can you think of any others?
Listen, this is not the story of the more the merrier. Okay, for me, it might be the more the merrier, so I wouldn't really shy myself if I was a decision maker on that regard. So, as I said, money is value and it's power. This is not only that men have power, but this is not the story behind it. The story is that we should start making some changes. And at least any of those women can be a perfect one to be on a banknote. The problem is not that we are fighting or who is going to be represented or to whose recognition goes. The story is to change the mentality and to change the stereotype that is in power up to now.
I think so my idea was,
Mother Teresa, I remember, was an idea years ago, but maybe because of the story, she's born in North Macedonia and then she's Albanian. So it might be a dispute among the countries.
No, I mean, I thought,
but there are a lot of women that can really deserve it. Yeah.
I came up with a big list and I was researching and I was thinking, because, if it comes to suggesting, if you can go with, look how many women there are who
even the current currency that we have, which is the 1,000
100. That's
the coin. 100. It's the only one that we have. Even that really bothers me. And I'm not speaking like a woman or a feminist, but it bothers me because you can't really represent women in the cheapest.
I know, yeah. It's
values. So
it's like it's a bit of an insult. It's an underhanded compliment.
Yeah, indeed.
That's why I thought, if we can go to them and say, look how many women there are, you have one or two
when
for
you
every
say
single denomination.
You can initiate something and you can start bringing.
I'm an Albanian citizen
now. You are an Albanian citizen, so a lot of women can write to the Central Bank of Albania and then through them to reach the academics who will be deciding on the next currency. And consider this is the 100 years of the Central Bank. So there is another maybe a new banknote coming out. So maybe it's right time.
Yeah, I think so. You've given me some ideas now. Okay, I want to start talking about some of the issues that women are facing in Albania. I was interviewed yesterday and someone asked me, how do you feel about women's emancipation in Albania? And I was like, we have an hour-long interview. Like, I need way longer to talk about this. And it's the same with you. But let's start. The World Bank reports that only 53.2% of Albanian women are employed. I checked the EU average, and this number was 70.2. It's 2025. Why are we facing this discrepancy still?
Well, unfortunately, it's not only Albania. It's present everywhere in the region and beyond that. So not only in the Balkans. And you know that the reasons underlined might be a lot. So women are part of the labor market or have always been part in the labor market, even in Albania, constituting a serious number. But lately there are even some changes. You know, the cycle of a woman's life, especially like taking care of her children, or then working in between hours, so working at having your job and then working at home and so on, makes more difficult for them to remain steady into the labor market. Some of them can really have some, let's say, intervals in between, like from pregnancy, birth, and they coming back to the labor market or finding a job, re-entering the labor market can be even more difficult for them. But this is not the whole story. So the whole story, or not even the whole, so I'm not even taking, I don't really want to look like I know everything. It's not that I know everything. But what I think and my point of view is how to make the best of use to empower women economically. The 53% of women who are working, and usually the women are the ones who think of not only of the next generation, but of their peers, of their parents, taking care of a broader, let's say, network of people than men. Even the intentions when they start a job or when they start a business is mostly to help others. So the idea is how to make this contribution of 53% of women as part of the economic growth and the economic richness of a country. And I came through these, let's say, new or some novelty idea of trying to measure not only the GDP of a country, but to mention the female domestic product of a country. So not only the gross domestic product. And given there is a formula for that I'm not going here to make people really pissed off of arithmetics and calculations. But in Albania, based on that formula, if you have a GDP of more than, let's say, $24 billion per year, then half of it, $13 billion, is the contribution that the women give if we measure the female domestic product. So if women contribute to half of the wealth of this country, are they really getting back half of the services? Are they really empowered in terms of wealth, or closing the gender gap when it comes to wealth or opportunities? So this is the big question. And there is a reason why the tendency these days everywhere in the world, and Albania is on the right path on that regard as other countries, but not only because we have been thinking so much on women, but because we are in the process that we would like to align like with the EU, and you are in the process of monitoring by the World Bank and then IMF as well, and so on. So the story behind that is this the right time now to think strategically about the role of women and how to empower women? It's not only the representation, it's not only the numbers of how many of them are working, how many of them are out of the labor market, or how many of them are really empowered to start a business, but is to translate and have a strategic approach on how to make our societies fairer and just, not more feminist societies, but fair and just, and empowered economically. So if I would paraphrase, it's economy stupid, I would say this time, it's women in the economy stupid. It's their role in the economy.
Yes. You know, it's...
I hope I was not too provocative.
No. And it's right what you're saying, you know, the contribution versus the participation, but also we have to look at the way that women are struggling to achieve this. And I'm going to give an example. My daughter starts school in September. I was a single mother for 3 years or so, really hard, working lots and lots of hours. She's been in state education. She'll start school in September. School finishes at 11:30, 12 o'clock. What am I supposed to do with her when I'm at work until sort of 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon? Gone are the days when many families could afford to have the woman stay at home by choice.
And it's of double burden for you because you don't have family relatives around that can help you.
Even Albanian families, you know, women are moving, people are moving to Tirana from other parts of the country. Maybe their family are there. Women are having children at an older age, meaning family members are not as young. Not everybody has a support network.
That's true.
And then you have to spend 150, 200
and this is one of the policies that haven't been quite successful here.
This needs to change.
No, but this has to be changed immediately. But first, you not yourself only, but everybody has to start thinking of either the school should be finishing like later on, and you have the study classes like in let's say a majority or a variety of countries everywhere, anywhere in Europe or elsewhere, or then women should be and have a flexible contract with their employer. So to go back home, try to take care of your kid. Unfortunately, we never were successful, although I'm trying to recall myself now when we started, like when I say we, it's the first women who were trying to change the stereotypes and norms regarding the women's rights in Albania. When we started to think and discuss about the social responsibility of the corporates, even that one we haven't been that successful, not only in the let's say institutions and state institutions, but in the private sector that I'm referring to now. So companies and business that should have a social responsibility. I'm not saying kindergartens, big kindergartens,
flexible hours,
but flexible hours, but even a corner for any parent like yourself that is a single mother working, in order to have your daughter maybe with you and while she's trying to study, but you can still have a look at her. You can still just have a 2 minutes discussion with her. So kind of these flexibilities, because the world of the job and then the labor market is becoming so difficult for everyone. And if we give like a kind of allowance to men to leave their homes, to work for longer hours, to network even beyond the working hours with each other, to empower each other through their lobbying and through their clubs, we should think on the other side of the women. And if there is a problem thinking of the women of today, because we might look like too, witchy, Then think of your daughters, dear man.
Yes,
think of the young women that are growing up, so they are going to face the same realities in some years.
Yeah, a couple of years ago when I was working at Exit, I crunched some data on this burden that women carry, especially when compared to men. And I found from looking at data from various sources that women are spending about 22% of their day doing unpaid domestic labor. Now, this term often gets sort of quite angry responses from people like, oh, taking care of children, cooking and cleaning, that's not unpaid domestic labor. You shouldn't have to be paid for it, blah, blah, blah.
Lovely so. When I mentioned the FDP before, which is the female domestic product, that calculation comes by taking into account those working hours at home.
Yes.
When you care for your children, and luckily, I'm not
Family
saying that
members
has
as well.
to, it's family members.
Yeah.
It should, it's not that it should change. A mother's role, it's never, it can never be. So it's the first thing that the kid and the child will always need, the mother's presence. I remember myself, so when we were sick and mom was taking like days off from her job, those were the luckiest day and the happiest days. So you had the soup, you had something, you had somebody taking care of you.
Yes.
You had that smell in the house that somebody was there present, and you felt secure, so you are not frightened. But the problem is that life is really bringing every and each of us into and facing difficulties and challenges every day. So that 22% as well, it has an economic value. It has an economic value because you are not paying somebody else to take care of your children at home. You are not paying somebody else washing your dishes. You are not paying somebody else to hang your clothes or laundry.
To take care of grandma.
Or to take care of grandma or mother-in-law and so on. So just if you calculate 2 or 3 persons doing that at home with the current, let's say, or with the Albanian standard of today, it might be more than 1,000 euros per month. So yes, that is a value.
And the issue as well is the disparity.
But this is not for men and husbands to calculate. This is for leaders and decision makers to do.
In comparison, the average Albanian man spends 3.47% of his day doing similar chores.
Yeah.
This is the issue as well. It's not women. I don't want to be paid for taking care of my child.
Yeah.
But
you have to have
people have to step up as well.
Indeed.
You know, because this is crazy.
And the man wouldn't love and wouldn't ask to be paid for taking care of his child as well. So it's the same in there. But their contribution is well recognized.
Yes.
And women's role in that contribution is seen as something, it's a woman's role, it's culture, is stereotype. We have done it this way forever, somebody can say. Yes, we have done it this way forever. But now there is a different time as well.
We also know that women in Albania who are doing the same jobs as men are getting paid less. In some similar comparable jobs are generally getting less.
Not that much. In Albania, the gender pay gap is roughly at 10%.
Okay.
The median is like 6.77, let's say, in everywhere in the region. It's not that, but again here, I have another understanding or rationale behind it. It's not only the gender pay gap, which in poor words is that women earn less, have less money than men for doing the same job, the same work. It's how that compounds in the, let's say, entrepreneurship belief that women have to be paid just like that. So imagine yourself or myself going somewhere else for a job interview, and your new employer has asked you or got all the info, how much you were paid before. So that is the compound, the hidden or the unseen impact of gender pay gap. By paying women less today, you are projecting like their future job will even run on the same path and the same direction. And for me, this is more worrisome than the current gender pay gap that exists today, because it speaks of how you devaluate the same job and the same work that a woman is delivering in regard to that of a man. It is compounded when you have the increase in the salary, because the increase of a man will go higher and the increase of a woman will always be less than that of a man. And then consider the inflation and how the inflation affects women and so on. So a lot of factors. This for me is even more dangerous, and
Yes.
this as well is something that we should look upon.
But how do we change this in terms of policy, like concrete policies? How do we deal with the gender pay gap, with this
Listen, there is
burden on
luckily
women?
no need for a rocket science in these stories, and whenever we speak of economics, right economics or empowerment of women. The most developed countries have already done that. You can help women, you can close the gender pay gap as well by helping women, as we said, to stay in the job for sure and be more secure than cutting their career in the middle because of the pregnancy or so on and so forth. There is nothing that it can't happen. What's wrong if in the state administration or if for the same position a woman leading a company, a university or somewhere else should be paid, and this should be taxative, the same amount, get the same amount as men. So why should be any differences on that? But one factor as well has to be considered. Women have to jump, and when I say women again, I refer to the young women that are brilliant. They can do everything. They should as well start to think, but before them, it's the policies who should start preparing them how to empower themselves financially, how to negotiate their value, how to start from early school. Sweden is down. Sweden is doing it perfectly. They start from early age, 7, 9 years old, and then they continue in all the education systems up to the tertiary one and so on. You tell women what is money. You tell girls how you can save some money and buy a cookie tomorrow. You tell them that you don't need to buy 2 or 3 things. You tell them how to prepare or sell your cookies, and then that's your money. And then you start fighting against financial illiteracy or fighting for financial literacy of women and girls in a young age. And by that, you'll have more women studying finances, you'll have more women in STEM, which are the positions top paid everywhere in the world. You'll have more women in the IT sector. I was looking days ago on a study from the World Economic Forum, but it's not the only one. I've been through those data during this last 6 years at the RCC because we tended to produce our own data called the Balkan Barometer Survey. And that's why I decided to run some initiatives that were focusing women. Even on that one, I had a big fight. But the story is how you can really teach women in among all this, let's say, atmosphere or realities, that your future job should not come only because you get a diploma. This is not the time for diplomas anymore. And I'm sad to say that. It's life experience, it's skills.
Yes, of
so if we would really like to compete, stand tall, and societies are based on 2 genders. It's going to be either male or female. We need to upskill women and teach the women on the professions that they have to face in maybe 5 or 10 years' time. A lot of professions, from AI that we started our conversation, or from the smart intelligence, some of the things will be disappeared.
I remember when I was at school, I hated maths. I really struggled with maths. My brain does not work in that way.
Don't tell me that you don't love maths now.
I hate it. I like words and art and music, but not maths. I remember my teacher saying to me, I think we were talking about Pythagoras, and he was saying, you'll need to know how to do this and algebra. You're not going to be walking around with a calculator in your pocket all the time. But I wish he'd taught me about saving, about investments, about different types of savings accounts and stocks and bonds and how mortgages work and how interest work.
Because I never loved maths at school as well. And I really dare to say that really few people love the way how you're taught maths at school.
I wish they'd taught me, because it took me until I was 32 to figure out how to save, how to invest, and then I finally managed to save, get a mortgage, but I wasted 12, 13 years of my life not having a clue how to use money, what I should be doing with it. Instead, I've got stuck in my head Pythagoras and algebra and how to do long division on a piece of paper, which I have not used since I was 15 years old.
That's quite true. That Pythagoras and everything else can be used for the one studying maths and then sciences, but for the rest of the people in the societies, you need to have the skills to to upskill yourself, because everything is changing. So remember when the computer came when I was a grown up, I was not small. How we started and we shifted from the typing machine to the computer, and then from all that revolutionary that came across the way. That's how the young women and girls as well should be prepared for the challenges of the societies that we are building, but that AI is changing massively. If not, then I'm afraid that we'll always keep talking about the women's role on healthcare, education, nursery homes, caring about parents and children. And then we'll see more and more men in science, in engineering, in mathematics, and so on.
I think as well, this lack of financial literacy impacts women when it comes to starting their own business or something. I'd read that 54% of women use their savings to start a business. There's a bit of a fear almost about accessing credit.
I remember loans.
When I went to get my house loan, I went to every bank in the country and I had a good deposit, a good salary, good references, good credit reference, a guarantor, everything. I remember going to one bank and them saying, "Oh, you have a daughter, but you're applying on your own. You're not married. You're not married." No. And they were like, "Okay." And then they came back to me and they said, "Well, everything's, everything looks good, but our board's a bit traditional. They prefer to lend to a real family." And I said, "So if I was applying with a husband, even if he earned nothing and had a terrible credit rating, that would be okay for them?" Yes, but they're a bit old. That's how they are. Can you imagine?
It's so unfortunate that they gave you this answer. So somebody should be ashamed.
I got one in the end. I got a loan in the end.
Yeah, somebody should be ashamed. And again, this is not. Whenever we speak or refer to the women fair representation in boardrooms or everywhere, it's not because that. And I don't want anyone to consider this like a hate speech.
No,
it's not that. Again, that's why I'm insisting. You have to see the contribution. It's economy.
Yes,
again, it's economy.
Yes.
The contribution that the women are bringing to our country's allure, to our country's, let's say, charmer positions in the world. And it's of utmost importance now to project what kind of future we would like, or what kind of present first, and then the future we would like for the generations to come, and for the girls that are growing today and will be young women tomorrow. Otherwise, we'll have more cases of domestic violence. We'll have more cases of women being victims of stereotypes and misogyny everywhere. It will be not an accident to have 2 or 3 sexist or hate speech comments or bullying based on your forms or your performance or your attire and so on. We'll continue to have always the forever, let's say, second option of the women in politics. And I dare to say that this is not going to bring us anywhere.
You mentioned domestic violence, and again, this was something we talked about in an interview I did yesterday. And again, the most recent data I found was that 1 in 2 Albanian women will suffer at least one form of domestic violence. But this can be psychological, economic. It doesn't cover just physical. And this is much higher than Europe. And I want to know, why is it so high in Albania?
Well, I don't know if those data are quite accurate, but in Europe, the figures are quite high.
UNDP, I think it came from.
If it's 1 in 2 this time, I tend to have a different analysis. So I'm refraining myself from saying what I think, because I don't want any stupid or hot-headed to cut and prepare meme out of this, what I'm saying. But 1 in 2 might be even because of the awareness on the domestic violence. And 1 in 2 might be that even more women are reporting today than they were reporting yesterday. Still, the problem of the domestic violence or the gender-based violence, not only domestic violence, is a huge problem in Albania. Yeah. It's a huge problem in Kosovo. It's a huge problem everywhere in the Balkans. And with all that is happening, this digital unsafety, it's becoming a huge problem everywhere. But it's becoming a huge problem, again, because we are not teaching anyone on the prevention when it comes especially to the digital sphere. But when it comes to the awareness, what is considered violence, what is considered psychological violence. You know, you came in Albania too late. I remember that when we started discussing about the domestic violence, this was in the 1990s, 1998. And that time I was teaching at University of Tirana, and myself together with a group of women. So we were trained, and then we continued to work like TOTs as well, so training of trainers, in trying to convince or spread the voice and then train the prosecutors, the judges that time, on how they should deal and how they should condemn. So what kind of they should give to men. So for those perpetrators and so everything on violence and domestic violence. It was a hell difficult to travel out of Tirana and convince judges and prosecutors, even women, to see things into a different perspective. Because there's, but it has been a tradition like that. The man, the husband is the husband, the man is a man.
Example,
so but speaking of marriage and the rape in the marriage, even for you was too late. Only last year they managed to change it. And it was a big fight, even in these Western civilized
they're
countries.
Still struggling with the concept of rape and consent.
To consider that rape is not consent, so that rape is forbidden and that rape is a crime, is part of. So even for Europe, it was pretty hard, considering the countries where the tradition was strong, because it's not only a matter of tradition; it's a matter of power.
Of course, that's what rape
and
is.
Nobody,
it's about power, isn't
nobody
it?
gives power. It's not. And gender-based violence, it's power.
Of course.
It's a fight of who thinks that is losing traditional power and will be seen as a weaker creature or as a weaker man, not worth of the status of a man. And that's the biggest problems that the societies are keeping on. Although the legislation on the domestic violence in Albania is quite advanced.
It is. And I must say, in 8 years that I've been here, almost, I think there is a difference now. If you were to go to the police 8 years ago and say, my husband is abusing me psychologically, he's done this, they would laugh you out of the station. Whereas if you went today...
To the police, to the doctors
I think
as
they
well.
know a bit more.
Police, doctors, the system is in place everywhere, even in the municipalities, and it is a good one. The implementation can still be a problem from here and there, from Tirana, elsewhere. And then to go back to the roots of our discussion, how can a woman go and just ask for help if she has 3 or 4 children? If she has no job, all she did her life was just taking care to grow up their kids, and as well no right to the property. Everything is written and is under the husband's name and the partner's name. So tell me, who's that courageous to think that they have to go out and live in the streets or somewhere, even in a shelter, when no one is offering them a home or apartment or something. On that regard, it's not that now we have biggest problems in trying to report the violence, but the biggest problems in trying to find a job for the women victims of violence, or giving them a shelter. Not only the shelters that have always been, let's say, under the, or organized or then kept by the NGOs, but shelter, apartments. How many apartments in Tirana are free today?
Social housing is non-existent,
and I have been saying this in Parliament and so on. You give a permission for 12 floors of an apartment.
A percent of it should be social
housing.
Say
that the percentage should go to the municipality. You don't have to build apartments of 200 meters square.
No.
But some small apartments,
2-bedroom, like
here and there, that nobody knows, not even concentrating those into the same building, because you are not segregating women. But here and there, give the access. Whoever is thinking that when a woman comes to ask, even for a cleaning job in any company or a private company, is anybody really trying by law to oblige the owner of the company to find a job and get and employ her better, or instead of somebody else who might be needy, but is not coming out of hell?
Because there's a problem. Women that do pluck up the courage to report their abuser, they'll go and do it, but then when they realize that there's limited help there, they end up forgiving.
They can go back, and then the worst comes. Usually the cases of murders at home and losing their lives, and a woman becomes the victim.
Women in politics, because we have the election coming. I'm voting this time, and I've been looking in all the lists and everything. Obviously, I'm looking for female candidates, not because I would just because they're female. But I would like to vote for a woman candidate.
Oh,
you know?
you'll have a lot of women candidates to vote this time.
Yes.
And especially the ones who are not part of the closed list.
Yes.
So, yeah.
But there's still no women leading a political party. And this is... I'd love to see it happen. How far do you think we're away from this? Or rather, why has it not happened yet?
Why it has not happened in, let's say, 160 countries worldwide, where out of 193, only 23 are women.
I know, but let's talk about Albania.
Well,
why
it happened in UK. You
had
had three women prime ministers.
And then we had Liz Truss, who lasted like a week or
Only
so.
for 40 days, something like that. 40 days, but you still had that three women. And all three from Conservative Party as well. So this is something that can be...
So, okay, it's not happening in other countries, but why shouldn't it happen in Albania?
No, that's not... this was like a tragic joke for myself. It's not that I was really justifying why it should not happen into Albania, but that there I have a conflict of interest, because I have been part of this politics for so long. Okay, let's say 12 years of being at the front page, let's say, and just not counting the years behind of that. But I've been for 12 years, so I was an exception to the norm, because I was the only female minister for 6.5 years in the government, and all the rest were men. So I have some pictures at home now when governments or members of cabinet were changed, and then you see different men in there, and it's only me wearing white or skirt or wearing something, and then all men in dark suits. So I have kind of a conflict of interest, and then it's not that I decided to interrupt politics or to leave politics. I was kicked out from my party, so I was forced to, which unfortunately is happening still today. So it happened all time. So that forever the second of women in politics is really pissing me off now.
Is it
so
a boys' club still?
It's a man's world.
Yeah.
But there is nothing without woman, then the song will go. But still, it is a man's world. And it's not quite easy to shake it or break that glass ceiling that is in there. Like myself, a lot of women in politics have made a lot of battles. So if we're speaking of the domestic violence and the violence in Albania, when I proposed in 2011 the changes into the penal code for men and perpetrators to be jailed for more than 25 years, but going even further, vetting of the judges and prosecutors who were just giving a low sentence to anyone who was abusing or was a recidivist. And then there are a lot of other women trying to make, like the quotas for women in politics.
Do you agree with the quota?
I have a different reading and understanding now, but I supported the quota at the beginning. But it was a different time. And then if you see a lot of battles that women do every day, it's like, it's always, as we know, walking on the tightrope, always, all time. But nobody really wants to hear you outshine the man master in politics. And it's quite easy. We don't need you anymore. No, we'll not allow anyone to change the status quo. And it's men's power. Men decide on how the electoral system should be made. Have you ever seen a woman being part of the decision making on how the electoral system should be, let's say, framed? No. And then you see these days that you have some women in the closed list and you have a lot of women in the open list, which is not bad. It might be better, but for me, it might be better to have an open majoritarian system. I ran my first mandate in an open system, majoritarian one, and I was the first female in Tirana who won. So that is fair. You go there, everybody, and you get your vote. But then trying now to find the best among the ones who are in the open list, it's going to be a bigger war. And in wars, usually politics gives more credit to men.
Yes.
So I'm afraid that instead of doing things in the righteous way or progressing, we are just modding everything a bit more. I cannot foresee what is going to be the result of the women in the next parliament. Surely the quotas will be presented. But now I'm coming back when you said, do you agree with quotas? Are the quotas enough today? quotas were used as a mechanism of force, of minimum representation
as well,
to have more women in parliament, and then those women in parliament to have like closer relations and to network with each other in trying to bring forward not only policies on healthcare and education and so on, but to constitute a group of force, of power in the parliament, rightly so. But then it didn't, or it's not working out that much. Because I'm afraid what happened during the years is that we propose the quotas and we are seeing the tokenism taking place. And you know what is tokenism? When you have the women in there, more women, just to count and say that Albania is one of the countries that has the most women representatives, or the
gender
most women
washing.
female, gender washing. That's how it is. And those women have no role in the decision making. Really, few women really are empowered politically during the last years in Albania.
But, I mean, I don't know whether I want to name them, but the Speaker of Parliament, you know, and then the Deputy Prime Minister, they are women.
Yeah.
Do you think they do have power?
I'm not going into the specific names or specific life endeavors. I would really love, even before the Parliament had a speaker that was a woman. It was Josefina Topali at the time. I want that women to feel empowered to come to the decision-making process, even when it comes to politics. And I tend to say that with all the wrongdoings being present in our society, no one would have really done it worse. Believe me, if leading a party or being a chair of a party. And again, I'm not saying that women should be there only because we need to count the quotas or say that, yes, there are 2, 3, or 4 women or 1 woman leading a political party. But because the power itself, it hasn't been right in this country. And then the sense of having always considering politics as it is, a war. You need to be strong. You need to have Superman powers. You need to have narcissistic personalities. You need to be a dark empath. You don't have to feel bad on something that you are wrongly doing. You don't have to feel bad because somebody else is always sidelined in there. This is not the right thing for the countries that we are living in, the societies.
It's terrifying. Like, people have said to me, oh, now you're a citizen, why don't you try politics, blah, blah, blah. And the first thing that comes into my mind is the way that women in particular who are in the public eye get ripped to shreds by the media, by even, you know, not their own colleagues, but other women.
It happened with the New Zealand Prime Minister.
Yes.
Yeah, you remember that she resigned, Jacinda, she resigned only because of the misogyny and the hate speech that she faced online. Now, women have to be warriors and fight with all the ghosts that are seated somewhere in there, and then tend to rip you off because they are paid so, because they are doing that for the sake of somebody else and so on, or simply because they are just expressing their frustration. They don't like you because in you they see their failure. And yes,
it's
politics is full of mutual self-destruction. It's full of mudslinging. It's full of personal as well doubts. And it's not that easy. I've been there. I've seen that. It's not easy. So if anyone asks me, would you like your daughter to run for politics? Then the answer as a mom would be no way. The answer is a woman who is still eagerly trying to see more women in the decision making because they deserve it, not because men think that they can give something to women in order to feed their ego, that they are doing great. I would say yes, she has to. But if you go and ask her, she'll say no way as well, because she has seen the hell through me.
And that's what I was going to ask. How do you... Okay, I am not in the public eye like you, but I get quite a lot of attention.
I'm not in the public eye anymore when it comes to politics. So
I get, and these interactions...
But luckily I'm free to say what I think.
these interactions that happen against my will, comments people leave, they might take my photo, or, you know, this has an impact on my family life, you know? And
it does.
and if that's just for me, I wonder for you how stressful and how you dealt with that sort of very hostile environment within your family who are not in the public eye?
Luckily that you don't know all the stories of women in politics in here, because you came later, and all you know is because of what has been discussed and the reading and so on. It is quite hard. It is hard. You just sometimes, so you have to over-explain sometimes.
Yes.
And this is not something that should happen. Sometimes it's because all of us internalize that in the public shame, it should be something that you have done wrong. And then comes from the way how we're grown up like women and so on. So if somebody was saying something wrong to you, or if a man was really trying to do something wrong to you, it's like even that you should think it twice. Did I do anything wrong? Was I wearing the wrong thing? Was I too smiley? Was I really?
Does he have a point when he calls me that name?
And that's how we have all been grown up. And I think on that regard, societies have been on the same, let's say, page. But the problem is that really, it hurts you, it hurts your people, it hurts your parents.
Yeah.
Who are older as well, and they don't have the mechanisms to cope with such a violence. And you are a mom, I'm a mom. If you hear or listen to someone attacking your daughter or doing wrong,
all rational thoughts.
So that's how my parents were feeling, or that's how parents are. So they are ready to do everything, but they do not have the power to do that. So they just suffer it within themselves, and they get sick and they get ill and so on. And then your partner, your husband, your children as well, because it's a different model, the mother and the woman and the wife you have. But then you see that others are trying to attack from all the sides, and for reasons that are non-existent. So everything is more difficult. I remember that some years ago, it was, if I'm not mistaken, 2012 or 2011. Those were the first days when the media portals in Albania were posting, so let's say the first signs of fake news against women. And now we know that you can't fight against something fake. It takes 4 good news to find 1 bad news. So it's quite impossible today. And we don't even know it's good to react or not to react. Because if you react, you are again bringing it to the algorithm of the social media. If you don't react, they'll think you don't have anything to say. And those days, there were all these comments, in the portals of media. And this, sorry for saying it, right, slut shaming, usually. Bullying, hate speech. And then I came with a proposal to ask for some changes to the civil code, not to the penal code.
Yes.
I'm saying to the civil code, to oblige the owners of the media outlets to delete the comments that were offending the dignity of the women.
Yes.
Not only myself, but most of the things start from personal experience.
Yes, yes.
And then that proposal that was tabled in Parliament was never voted. And I was having even my former friends in media, because I started working in media, that were attacking me publicly, even drawing parallels with one famous article during the communist time, which was agitation and propaganda called. So, like, the famous article 55, that was against the free speech, against the free speech.
It's crazy.
And here we are today, years after, when there is a decision from the German Bundestag as well, fining the media outlets, even Facebook. They went even further.
You are facilitating hate speech.
Yes.
It's a crime.
And there is a decision, and there are different acts in the from the European Commission, European Parliament, that are doing the same thing now by trying to point the finger. You are the owner of the media outlet. If you see, okay, I can bear all the criticism on how I perform on my job or how I perform politically. You don't agree with me on let's say, what I was saying publicly on certain, let's say, debates, but you shouldn't dare to go and move and just jump to the other border when you are offending women only because they are women.
It becomes
that never happened. Albanian parliament has still that proposal in there. If they would like to vote it one day, They can
I
even
think
do
it's
it.
necessary and it needs updating as well.
But here we are. You have the deep fake news.
Yes. Social media. We have women that killed themselves because
you have the cyber threats to women. And is it time now to speak, since we are in the process of alignment with EU, we might be a member state
in 2
EU.
years, perhaps. Who knows?
I was for 6 and 7 years, 7 years almost, Minister of EU Integration.
Yes.
So I know the story, how it goes. But I'm not commenting on that anymore. Luckily, if the day comes tomorrow, I would be the first one to say, yes, I'm the happiest person. Still, there is a long road to hoe. And the problem is, do we have to think of something that EU is doing? Like the Digital Safe Act.
Yeah. Do it first.
Digital Safe Act.
Do you agree
not only
with
on women, young girls as well.
Do you agree with the ban on TikTok?
I was never a fan of TikTok. So myself, and I never used TikTok. So and usually I had some, so I would vote for a no confidence vote on some social media. It's not the problem of TikTok alone. It's the problem how we misused and what created in the society. I really, personally, I wouldn't really mind on the ban of the TikTok. And especially because we haven't built the mechanisms to be in place to give us the guarantee that we are not blaming TikTok or Instagram. So it's like a double sword. This is the easiest way. It's not the solution. We have to think in between. This is happening, but in between, we should think of the legal acts of how to protect children, women, adults, humans.
It's like this free-for-all that's sort of out of the grips of control. Social media has become so powerful, and when you mix it with very little enforcement from the platforms themselves, I've had death threats and you report it. Sorry, this hasn't violated our rules. What?
Yeah.
And then we can talk about AI deepfakes, for example. There was a famous Albanian woman who was victim to this recently. It's terrifying what can be done. We've had 2 women that have maybe killed themselves linked to abuse and revenge porn on social media. Like, something has to be done, and we can't wait for TikTok and Meta to...
But again, this goes back to and I'm saying this again very oftenly because, so I tend to analyze now. It goes back to education as well. It goes back to the cyber curricula that for me is a must to be introduced at an early age at school. It goes back to some, let's say, elementary skills of how to identify the fake news. Again, Finland is doing that. Sweden is doing that. We need to empower teachers and then prepare all these classes. Maybe at the beginning, those might not be mandatory, but still, those classes that can even take up and then make your daughter stay for longer at school beyond 11:30, discussing on the digital safety online or on the bullyism online.
Do you think there is something that could be included in the curriculum that would help teach equality and fairness between the sexes? And if so, what would that look like for you?
I would really like if I can say that I know the curriculums of the young age from kindergarten and the early education quite well now. So my children are grown up. And I stopped looking at the books. But based on what I know and whatever the media is reporting time after time, there are lectures and there are chapters speaking on the equality. The problem is on how we give real examples, life stories, face value to what we are teaching to our children.
Majlinda, we've come to the end. There's much more I think we could have discussed, but I think we covered a lot there. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for inviting. And good luck with your vote.
Thank you. That's all for this week. You can watch Inside Albania every Saturday at 4 o'clock on Euronews Albania's TV channel, on our YouTube channel, Euronews Albania, or across all major podcasting platforms. Until next week, Mira Pavce.